That was excellent.
Hello, friends. Thank you for being here. So like you said, my name is Pyasa, and I am a somatic sexologist. Does everybody know what that means? No? Okay, yeah, I get asked that question a lot. So there's some sexologist, which is more like a talk therapist, and I'm actually a somatic sexologist, soma, meaning body, somatic, body-based, so body-based sexologist. So I actually touch my clients, and many years ago I was trained as a massage therapist, and we were taught very careful ways to touch everybody except right here, right? So actually I do touch people here, and I help to release the pelvic floor, help people to find more presence in their bodies, and often, and really to decondition a lot of the negative, non-beneficial sexual programming that all of us were given. So that's kind of a little bit. I hope that helps you understand better. So body-based learning. And I feel that this is really important because so many of us have been traumatized around our sexuality, and when I say sexuality too, I also am not just talking about sex as in sex, but our chi, our life force, our creative energy is here. Yeah, so that is why it's important. And I got onto this path because of my own sexual traumas, and so I got on a journey of healing myself, and met a lot of teachers and guides, and went to school and learned a lot about this, and decided that I feel that this is really important. Pretty much all of us need to get back into our bodies because so many of us have been traumatized out of our bodies. And so let me figure out this. Okay. Back in May, I was honored by Jeff Berwick flying down to Vilcabamba, Ecuador, to interview me about a documentary that I was creating, and it is called Circumcision, Healing the Hidden Wound, Sex, Spirit, and Circumcision. And so we talked about that, and one of the things that I said in the interview was, when one doesn't do the healing or confront their feelings, they are slaves. We are slaves when we are controlled by our conditioning and our programming, when we are not aware of it, and that's what's running us. So if we really want to be true anarchists, this starts from within. And I didn't prepare that quote or anything, but I'm like, wow, that's great, actually. And it really is the essential of what I feel is really true. Because I think that, as anarchists, we're all here excited and talking about freedom. And in many ways, what we're talking about, a lot of people are talking about our keeping or getting our freedoms. And what I really want to talk about is our freedom. Yeah, and to me, that is, we're not going to have that until we start to talk about our conditioning. Something that we're going to find within. And so some say, David Icke said something about that what humanity is suffering from is mass hypnosis. Yeah, and I'd like to add to that we've not only been hypnotized on a massive scale, but we've been traumatized on a massive scale. And so I do believe that clearing our non-beneficial programming is one of the most important things that we can do to free ourselves. And in order to do this, we're going to have to acknowledge our wounds. And I feel pretty certain to be able to say I feel that I can say with certainty that everybody in this room has some sort of sexual trauma in their past, whether they're aware of it or not. And one of the things that we don't necessarily think about, possibly, is that circumcision, if anybody has been circumcised, this is actually genital mutilation. It is a violation. It is a boundary violation of an infant male at 48 hours to 7 days old. This is when this little baby is strapped down and amputated, right? And this happens without anesthesia at a very young age, and there are consequences to that. And I think that, there's a lot of people who are aware of that and aware that it is a violation. What I think people might not be so aware of are some of the consequences of that. And that is what I've been researching for my documentary. And as I started to get into this, well, let me tell you how I got into this subject. I was taking a scar tissue remediation course, which is, remediation just means healing. And so this was really directed for women. It was for after women have had episiotomies or some kind of vaginal tearing. And it's really quite easy to work on the scars and to get sensation and feeling back. And I was thinking, why are we only thinking about women here? Because I also was working with men, but not around scars. And I thought about, what about that there's a scar right around the penis, the lingam. From the removal of the foreskin, there is a scar that's been left over. It's called the ring scar. And that's part of what got me onto this whole track. And I'm not, just to let you know, I'm not only going to stay on circumcision. I want to share with you today some things that will help us everybody to embody more pleasure. But first, I'm just going to share a little bit more about some of the consequences of male genital mutilation. And then I'm going to talk about ways that everybody can heal, whether it's from sexual traumas, from social conditioning, or sexual abuse. So trauma-based mind control programming can be defined as systematic torture that blocks the victim's capacity for conscious processing. And I can't really say for certain that male genital mutilation or the sexual abuse that is so pervasive in our society is intentional or some kind of MK Ultra programming. But I do know that it is, the effects of it is our conditioning. So it's creating trauma, which then creates our conditioning. Yeah, so it is a form of trauma-based mind control. And so one of the secrets about getting back into our bodies after we've been traumatized out of them is embodiment. And so I know that pleasure, when I talk about pleasure as being our birthright, yeah, I do believe that we are born and we all deserve pleasure, yeah, and that birthright has been taken away from many of us. And when I talk about pleasure, just like when I was talking about sexual energy, I'm not actually just talking about sex. Like there is pleasure centers in every part of our body. So we can all reclaim that pleasure and become, we are born with infinite orgasmic potential. So let me not get I'll try not to get too far off here. I want to talk a little bit about what happens, say, when that baby boy or anybody is traumatized or violated in their body. We have a trauma defense system. So when we're faced with a threat, our amygdala in our brain goes on, right? That's like saying that there's danger around. So that's one thing that happens. Another thing that happens is we try to curl and protect the whole front side of our body. And this affects all of the muscles. There's a contraction that happens. And when we want to experience pleasure, there's an expansion, right? So this contraction for many people can get stuck. So it could end up creating problems in the back. It could create tension in the pelvis, which prevents us from really being able to relax and experience pleasure, because contraction actually stops circulation and stops pleasure from being experienced. Does that make sense? Yeah? So another thing that happens when we experience a threat is we go into either fight, flight, or freeze. Thank you. I always call it FFF. And there's another one too. But so the first one is fight. We try to fight to protect ourselves. Flight, we try to get out of there. Or freeze, we just completely disassociate and disappear. And this is actually what happens. For a long time, doctors believed that babies don't feel. Babies don't feel. But what scientists have discovered that actually babies feel everything. Even like a touch on the arm, they feel as sensation in their entire body. So circumcision, which happens without anesthesia, can put this baby into such a state of freeze that doctors thought the babies were sleeping, but they were just actually so frozen. So the other part of the FFF, which is the fourth F, is fawning. And fawning is about going along with somebody else's agenda. And so, that's like, I'm just going to go along with your agenda because it's going to be easier for me and I'm going to be protected. So the reason that I'm telling you all of this is because when we have experienced some kind of threat, if we don't discharge this threat from our nervous system, it stays there. So it could be that years later, we're still in the fight. Those are the people who are very aggressive, get very angry, or go into rages. Flight, we're always trying to disappear, maybe into our work, or alcoholism, some kind of escapism. Freeze, we're just kind of not there. Or fawning, we're just going to go along with what anybody else tells us. And we don't even know how to say no anymore. In fact, we don't even know what we want. And so I'm telling you all this, and I want you to remember that and really just reflect into your own self and see where that might be still living in your own body. I know that in the male genital mutilation anti-movement, there's a lot of people who are quite angry about it, and of course you have an absolute right to be angry about it. It disgusts me. And I think that in order to really, what we really want to do is just regain and rebalance our nervous system so that we can be more present to life and pleasure all along. Let's see where I left off. So, societies remain unchanged because we as people remain unchanged. And I share that because I actually found that quote. Somebody said it in a movie, and I thought, that is just so good. It was a stupid movie, but it had this amazing line. And what I really feel is that as we each recover our nervous systems, we're going to be able to make a much bigger impact in the world and really be the change that we want to be. And so a few more things about trauma is that it really keeps us out of the present. It's kind of like a little marker in time. When that happens, it could keep us kind of like at the age of whenever that trauma happens. We don't really move forward because it also creates what are called core wounds. And, our parents or our caregivers, whoever was taking care of us, are supposed to keep us safe. And so circumcision or sexual abuse or things like this are one of the biggest and first betrayals by the people who were supposed to take care of us. And so how this imprints into our experience, or the way that our world view, how we see the world, can be, I'm not safe. I'm not good enough. If I was good enough, maybe somebody would have kept me safe. So this is, hopefully I'm expressing this in a way that can make you see and understand if there are challenges in intimacy or connection or relationships, or maintaining relationships. It may be partly because some of this experience not being resolved and still being in the system. How do you trust somebody when even your parents didn't take care of you in the way that you expected them to? And so here's the triune braid. This is just a little commentary on something that I kind of find a little bit funny. Is if you look there, you have the reptilian brain down in at the bottom in the brown, and we talk a lot about reptiles around here. And when we're in a state of fight or flight, or FFF, fight, flight, freeze, we're actually coming from that place. So we are actually the reptilians. I don't know. It's a little joke I have with myself. Maybe you find it funny. So the secret to getting out of this fight, flight, or freeze and back into any possibility of experiencing deeper levels of pleasure and full-bodied pleasure is embodiment. This was the best. I searched the internet to try to find images that really expressed embodiment. Very difficult to find. So anyway, he looked pretty alive, Alex Gray. And full-bodied presence, so many teachers stress the importance of living in the present moment, but I think a lot of it is really, how do we get there? It's like, yeah, just be here now. Well, how? Like when our nervous system is still stuck in some of these places, how do we get there? And the secret really is getting out of our heads and into our bodies. And also, there's a wonderful book. There's actually 2 books. One book is Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score. I highly recommend this book. As I was reading this book, I feel like I learned a lot about myself, and I really felt that it empowered me a lot to get more free. And another book is Feelings Get Buried Alive, But They Never Die. And that is also quite true. All of those feelings are still there. So I do not have as much time as I would like to have to tell you everything I have to share. Do you want to hear the history? Some of the excuses for circumcision: religious sacrifice, pact with God, humiliate enemies and slaves, reduce sexual pleasure. That's really true. It was used to stop people from masturbating, to increase attractiveness, indicate social status, deter masturbation, repel demonesses, ensure fertility, rite of passage, and to ensure health and hygiene. And some of the reasons that they were talking about circumcision, doctors say, is easier hygiene, you're not going to get a urinary tract infection, STDs, penile problems. All of these things are false, and all of this has been proven that it's not true. This is what it looks like, how it's happening around the world. And so I really want to encourage everybody to look at their own conditioning and to take a look, because even if you choose not to circumcise your child, if you haven't done the work, there is a new science that we understand is epigenetics. So whatever we don't resolve within ourselves, we just pass on to the next generation. And I really believe that everybody here is a pattern breaker. That's why you're here at Anarchapulco. So I just want to add to that basket of things to do is to work on your programming, clear some of the conditioning. I'm just going to skip over some of this because I don't have enough time. So here are some of the solutions. And before I go into what's up there, specifically regarding circumcision, to get some sensation, some of the sensation back into the penis, is scar tissue remediation that I was mentioning before, which is very, very simply put. This is something that I do with my clients, but you can do with yourself, is a simple pinching and rolling of the scar. And because any kind of cut on the body creates a break in your electromagnetic field. It also, any cut on the body can create, any scar can create adhesions into the body, right? So breaking up that scar tissue is actually very important and can bring a lot more sensation. Breathing, coming present. Breathing is a self-regulation tool. And I think that, unless you go to Foreign and have your foreskin regenerated, which they haven't actually perfected yet, or you want to use the tugger to get back some of that gliding action. The tugger pulls any of the skin, some of the skin on the penis down and stretches it over time so that there actually is more glide and rolling in the intercourse. So, got off subject there a little bit. Going back to self-regulation. Okay, so breathing is a really wonderful way, bringing mindfulness to anything that we do. Feeling your feelings, because like I said, feelings are buried, but they're never gone. Grounding, just even walking on the earth, developing the connection with the earth. This is your conception vessel meridian. This is how we connect to the earth. This is how we connect to the sky. And so when that connection is disturbed, it can be realigned. And also, going off subject a little bit again too, is, like I said, sex is not just genital grinding, right? We really want to rediscover sexuality and sex as a full-bodied experience. So I know that there are so many men who are really, really sad about not having a foreskin and sad at the idea that they might never have a foreskin. So whether Foreign ever happens or not, or you do use the tugger, you can also just start slowing down in sex, experiencing the whole body as a sexual organ and a place of connection. And yeah, I really do think that it's really important to get support. Whether you've been sexually abused by another person or through circumcision or however that is, it's really important to start talking about it, to share and to find people that can understand you and that may not be your parents. They might take it, they may not ever understand. They might just feel like they did what they had to do to keep you healthy and clean. So that might not be who you want to talk to. But it is really important to talk about these things because, I did name this speech, Pleasure, Reclaiming Your Birthright. I am still talking about pleasure. How do we get there? We're breathing. We're coming present time. We get support and we express our feelings. And, we get witnessed and seen. And once we release those feelings, they don't have to be under the surface there anymore. Also in between us and whoever it is that we're trying to relate to and have intimacy with. Microdosing. Microdosing with mushrooms, microdosing with ayahuasca. These are really beneficial medicines to support the nervous system. So when we're talking about the fight, flight, or fright, freeze, getting stuck in the nervous system, this can create anxiety and depression. And looking at the statistics, it's really hard to kind of put together, but it's something like 7 out of 10 people have anxiety or depression. So I really wonder why. You know, that's in the United States. So that's quite a lot of people already in any given group of people, you know. So sometimes I think that, you know, people, we look at our lives and we're like, God, I have everything. Like, I have a house over, you know, a roof over my head. I have clothes. I have a good life and a good partner. Why am I so depressed? Why do I feel so much anxiety? Well, that could be one of the reasons, is that these old traumas get stuck in our system. So I know that was true for me. And so I feel it's just so important to share. Body work. Sexological body work is my profession. I shared that I was certified in the state of California, which is the only state in the United States that allows that. Any other state in the US, touching genitals and receiving money is prostitution. But Europe is getting big in, they're doing a lot of sexological bodywork trainings, but this is a really wonderful way to do genital de-armoring. To release that contraction. Because contraction, as I was saying before, really doesn't allow us to experience pleasure, and expansion is the place that we want to be. That's why breathing and grounding and relaxing is going to bring us the pleasure that we want. And shaking is an amazing practice that actually came to me. I never learned about. I learned about it through using ayahuasca. One night in a ceremony, as I was sitting there like shivering and sweating and freezing all at the same time, just had this voice said, just stand up and allow it to move through you. And I stood up and my body just started shaking. And so this was really inspiring, and after that, I like to research, so I started researching about that as well, and found out there's an ashram in Bali where people go to shake and they're healing cancers and all kinds of dis-ease, because that is trauma, again, that's been stuck into the system. Trauma that hasn't been acknowledged or discharged can turn into dis-ease in the body. So shaking is a great way to self-regulate. I only have a very short time here. There's so much I wanted to share with you. So actually, I'd like to just share with you a poem that came through me. Which kind of says everything that I wanted to say all together in more of a poetic form. Put on my poet. Let's open our eyes and listen. It's time to remember that this life is not a show. We didn't come here to pretend, so let's release all denial, because I know it's not mine. I'm here to be the real me. Here's the deal. It's not the things we own that define. Give it up before it's taken. Our world is splitting. Our earth, she's shaking. This paradigm's getting tossed like a flea, but it's only illusion lost. Our outward security. Patterns deeply ingrained into the psyche. It's a sifting through this muddled confusion. Thank God it's lifting. It can leave us raw memories coming back so they can be let go, because it's not really true that what you don't know can't hurt you. It's frozen in the cells. It's the environment. It's the chemical climate that we're living in, aware of it or not. So take the old pain and hold it up to the light. Shine your love into the darkest of places. Make room for ease to fill the spaces. Shift happens, clean it up. Illuminate old fears so we can all come clear. I'll do my part, you do yours. It's a collective operation. It's the ultimate healing love vibration that we have all been waiting for. It's a portal, it's a door that we can flow through so that we can be through with the shame and the blame, because that's an old, old game and it is not serving. And thank you. With the shame and the blame, because that's an old gold game and it is not serving, because you know that deep within you are deserving of the total love and approval that only you can give to you. And I'm not talking about loving your personality or abilities, because that's just the ego, you see. I'm talking about true responsibility, your core, your center, the truth of who we are. Wake up and remember. Cycles gaining speed, there isn't time to waste. Feel your intuition. Trust yourself, slow down, and meditate. So you can integrate the cosmic frequencies coming in. Look around, is this really where you want to be? And I'm not talking about literally, although that can matter too. I'm talking about within your mind. So if you find it's not exactly feeling right, it needs to change. Don't let fear hold you back, because that's only false evidence appearing real. Choose a positive affirmation and let go of all self-denigration. We need Jedi heroes. We need superstars. We need you to remember who you really are. To heal is to deal is to feel is to heal. I'm doing too, and I can tell you that I know that it's not easy as those layers are coming off. But once they're through, it's a relief. It's actually relaxing. It was juggling together all those false realities that was really so taxing, exhausting, body, mind, and soul. So let's take the jump together and remember, we are whole. Thank you.